How's it going, Guardians? It is your boy Turkey here at SGN Hub bringing you another video, and this one is going to be one that I've waited for quite some time to make because I wasn't sure about my decision on whether or not to say this because a lot of things seem very clickbaity when you say these. But upon using multiple different iterations and roles of this weapon, I think, for me personally, I think that this very well may be the best legendary SMG available in the game right now. And that, for me, is even taking into consideration, Peacekeepers, especially other available options, but the slot that this lands in and the perk combinations available for it, and with how shallow the perk pool is, I find this to be absolutely phenomenal. So without further ado, let's hop into the video and talk about the gun we're talking about, which is going to be the Parabellum. And the Parabellum, for all those who are not familiar, is a solar SMG, and it's also a 900 RPM, which happens to be my personal favorite. And this weapon comes with a plethora, and when I say a plethora of different combinations, not necessarily roles themselves, which makes this phenomenal. The combinations themselves are what you're going to be searching for, and I have three that I've been looking for, and I finally got, and there's one more left. I think is the only one that I could say that I want that I haven't been able to test. Now, with that being said, in the first column, we have, in my opinion, the best one, Heal Clip. We have Heal Clip, then we have Shoot to Loot, Stats for All, Enlightened Action, Permeability, and Rewind Rounds. Now, I feel like when you look at that first column, the only two notable options that you're going to be looking for are Heal Clip and Rewind Rounds. And the reason being primarily for that is I've been running a lot of Peacekeeper Titan, and that Rewind Rounds is phenomenal because it helps the uptime on your Peacekeeper damage buff, and Heal Clip just simply for survivability. And I'll have some gameplay up in the background of me trying to run solo Flawless Warlord's Ruin. I died, unfortunately, to a Screep, pushing me off the edge, not to the game. But I was using one of my roles in this dungeon, and it was doing absolutely phenomenal. And I've been testing this out against Carl, against different situations, whether it be for damage. And the damage that it puts out is absolutely phenomenal. A lot of the times you can actually one-clip Carl if you're using Peacekeepers. You just won't reload, and you can take Carl down in one mag. Now, in our second slot, to talk about those pairings, or the second column rather, we have Attrition Orbs, Deconstruct, Frenzy, Adagio, Underover, and Dynamic Sway. Now, there are two in particular in this slot that are going to be very, very good on this weapon. And the first one is going to be Deconstruct. And I feel like this one kind of gets a little bit of a bad rap, or it's just not quite as understood. But in my opinion, I see it as almost like a knockoff Rewind Rounds, and it also applies a damage buff, but it's only to particular enemies. And the description for Deconstruct is as follows: dealing sustained damage grants bonus damage against vehicles and constructs, and refills ammo from reserves, which is the biggest part of it that I'm looking at, because being able to use that, like I said, especially with Peacekeepers, is phenomenal. I did do a Peacekeeper build video using the Parabellum, not one particular role, but this one's going to be focused primarily on the weapon itself. Now, the thing about Deconstruct a lot of people don't realize is that is a very strong damage buff, in my opinion. It's roughly 40% against structures and, stasis crystals, things like Briggs or along those lines. But having essentially two perks in one is what makes Deconstruct really appealing to me. I know it got nerfed quite some time ago, but I still feel like that's going to be one of the more viable perk options in the second slot for this weapon, just based on that ammo regeneration, and that's also going to help you get to the field-tested, the origin trait, which stacks up to 5 times. It helps out so much more than I can even express. Next up, we have Frenzy, which is obviously the other one that you're looking for. Frenzy states, being in combat for an extended time increases damage, handling, and reload for this weapon until you're out of combat. And this also synergizes really well with the field-tested trait. We're already getting reload, handling, and things like that from that, and we'll talk about how much this plays a factor in the gameplay loop and how smooth this weapon feels also. Next up, we have Adagio. Weapon kills grant the following for 7 seconds, 10 range, 30% increased damage, and 20% longer firing delay. I'm not really a big fan of Adagio personally. It could potentially be good with Rewind Rounds, but it's not necessarily my cup of tea. I like things that kind of just apply immediately. And since we don't have any immediate things like Target Lock, the two that you're really going to be looking at are Frenzy and Deconstruct. Now, I have one role with Rewind Rounds and Underover, but that's not exactly what I'm looking for. The one role that I actually am missing is Rewind Rounds and Frenzy. Debatably the best one to some, but I'm not certain of that yet until I get it. And I'll talk about the three roles that I have. I believe there are four roles in particular that are going to serve somewhat niche different purposes. And the first one that I will talk about is the one that I've been using as of, I want to say, a day before yesterday. I got that I was looking for quite some time. As of the recording, I now have 3,352 kills with this, and it has Deconstruct and Heal Clip. As I said, this pairs really, really, really well with the Peacekeeper's buff. Granted, how it keeps that uptime, you're getting a little bit of ammo back to the mag, and you're healing off of every single kill. And since you got that damage buff with Peacekeepers, you're getting kills very frequently, and even without it, this thing still puts out relatively decent damage, and Deconstruct will give you those rounds back to give you the extra shots that you need to get that kill. And I feel like Heal Clip being on this weapon in the center slot is so phenomenal because it frees up that exotic heavy and also our primary slot for things like DPS over time, like Wither Horde or Anarchy or Dragon's Breath, or something along those lines in the slot above or below them. So having Deconstruct or something like that to maintain that uptime while you're potentially putting in damage with other weapons is always a solid for me. I love the idea of being able to just do damage with weapons, or like the fire and forget supers like Twilight Arsenal, and then being able to just dump into a boss with something like this along the lines of this with Peacekeepers. Now this one's going to be more of a solo-centric role in my opinion, the Deconstruct Heal Clip, as well as the other one, which I'll move on to right now while we're still talking about the Heal Clip role. The other one that we have is Frenzy Heal Clip, which is another solid role, which at the time I have 2,200 kills with, just to show you guys that I've really been testing this out, trying to figure out which one I like the most, and I'm not sure if I have one that I like the most, to tell you the truth. I'm just honestly a big fan of this SMG, and I think most other people should be too. Frenzy is great. A great pairing with Heal Clip, but I found that in Expert to Master Lost sectors, you weren't able to mow down the champions as quickly with, like I said, those options, i.e. Wither Horde or Anarchy paired with it. So this is a great solo role, maybe not for super chunky content, but maybe for ad dense content where the enemies are going to get gunned down pretty quick and you know that they don't have too much of a health bar that you're going to have to start chunking into. If I had to select between the three, my two probably will be my most used ones, will be the one that I'm going to move on to now, and the one I previously showed you, which was the Deconstruct and Heal Clip. Now this one is going to be a Peacekeeper Titan's dream, and this is probably my favorite actually. I lied and said I didn't have a favorite one, but I have the most kills on this one for a reason, and this is Deconstruct and Rewind rounds. This thing absolutely puts out damage, folks, and I'll have the background gameplay of me just mowing down Carl, even using it in bosses. It in conjunction with Wither Horde or even just Lumina. I did one damage test just with double primary simply to see what it was like with Lumina and Peacekeepers, and I feel as if the buff may cap out. I'm not exactly sure with the Lumina, what things cancel it out in conjunction with it, but I was able to put out 3.3 million in the Warlord's Ruin encounter with two other Guardians, and I was only using my SMG, and I'll have that gameplay up in the background as well. This SMG is, in my opinion, a must-have, and it serves so many different roles, whether or not you're using Peacekeepers or not. I was using it with a Spirit of Star Eaters and Spirit of the Warrior, a Prismatic Bond item, and it was still serving the purpose in that dungeon of getting those Heal Clip kills. The 900 RPMs I feel like has always shined in terms of the archetype in PvE, and I feel like this one only just does it much better than a lot of the other ones. And you don't have as deep of a perk pool to really go through. I know we do have, it being a random world drop, but given the season that we're in, you also have access to tonics to increase that drop rate. Folks, I'm telling you, do not dismantle this SMG. Look for some of the roles that you saw me talk about in this video today, like the Rewind rounds and Deconstruct, Heal Clip, Deconstruct, Rewind rounds, and Frenzy. This thing is just an absolute monster, and field tested just makes it that much better. This thing feels so smooth, and I highly recommend you guys go try it or just stop dismantling them, especially if you've gotten one of these roles. And if you're a Peacekeeper Titan, shame on you for the dismantle. But nonetheless, it's been your boy Turkey here at SGN Hub. Be on the lookout for more content. Peace.